Hey, what's happening, Roland? Well, hey, today it's what's happening, Roland. It's a Friday, and it's actually the 8th, I think it is of it's the 8th of November. So it's the first week of November. Well, it's the second week of November. Well, it was really kind of crazy because the other day when I did the last one, I was hunting. I was hunting with this bow, and so since then I've done some hunting. And I didn't. Let me just tell you a little bit. We'll get into the fishing because there's some good fishing coming up. But let me just tell you what I've killed a lot of deer with bows and guns and every kind of thing. And some trophies that are pretty decent. So I had three different deer, three different bucks that come in, and I drew on them. I drew a really good shot, and I decided, well, it's not quite the trophy that I wanted. One of them was a pretty good 10 pointer that might have gone 135 points. It wasn't too bad. It was pretty decent bass, pretty decent bucks. And the others were smaller yet. And then a couple dove. And so, what the heck? I got plenty of meat, and I'm a sportsman. I'm a catch and release guy for the bass. So I more or less caught and released those deer. When I draw on a deer like this, it's a nice halfway decent trophy, and I say, you deserve another day, and it kind of makes me feel good to have a draw and a beautiful shot at 20 yards, and I know I could have closed the deal. I know I could have, but it's still that hey, that's anticipation, and the whole thing is about hunting and fishing is anticipation. So what I try to do is I try to anticipate a big fish like that or a big bass, and just whether I catch it or not, hey, that's my enjoyment right there. Okay, let's get into the fishing. I got back from the hunting trip and I went right over to Headwaters. I tell you what, Headwaters is alive and well. You just can't believe how good it is. It was a lot of wind, and so I picked up my guide party and I said, listen, there's a whole lot of wind now. We can catch a few on spinner baits. It's warm fishing's kind of out because the wind's blowing like 25 miles an hour. Topwater fishing's out. That requires less wind. And I said there'd be a good chatterbait bite and there'd be a good spinnerbait bite, and that's about it. Because I don't know, maybe a shallow water square-bill crankbait might work on some of the canal edges, but basically the best shot. They said, well, we want to catch a bigger fish. Well, okay, if you want to catch a big fish, let's do some shiners. So I said, well, what we'll start off with is 8 dozen shiners. 8 dozen shiners is quite a few shiners, like 100 shiners. Well, so I go to Pat Kelly there at the Fellsmere headquarters. Okay, I've got plenty of shiners, got plenty of bait. I got them in. What I did this time, my other boat, if you notice my tracker boat over there, it has a bad axle, so we're fixing that. So in the meantime, I took this other boat. I took my regular bass boat, my Z21 that I use on bigger water, but I can use it fine on headwaters. It's got a good live well system, and I can hold them alive just fine. So I put 8 dozen, 4 dozen in each live well. Okay, man, I got out there. The wind is howling. And here's the deal about shiner fishing or any kind of fishing when there's wind, particularly shallow water. I don't care if it's a shallow lake or a deep lake. What you have with wind is current, and that's what you need to find for. Let's look at a narrow, constricted area. You need to find like a big bay. What I did, I found a big bay, kind of a narrow little slot where the wind is pushing the water through as current. Boy, those fish stack up in those kind of places. That's what you want to do, and you want to find plenty of current. That's what we did. We got plenty of current. Now I use two different shiner rigs. Okay, the first shiner rig is this regular this it's a balance rod by Favorite, and I use a Bass Pro Shop reel that has a clicker on it. And why I use that? I use the regular Favorite reels too, but sometimes for shiner fishing, see that clicker? That clicker is a big deal. Because I can set that float or whatever, even a free line. In this case, I ran it a lot shorter. I ran this float just about 3 foot, and that's a 50-pound braid on this rod. Sometimes I use 65-pound braid. And there's two ways to hook the shiner. One, I hook it in the mouth, or I hook it in the back. Now, if you hook it in the back, it has a tendency to swim away from you and swim into the cover more. If you swim it in the mouth, hook it in the mouth, it kind of turns and kind of swims out from the cover. But in this case, the wind was blowing so hard, it didn't make any difference because You could hook it either way because the wind kept everything pushed over into the bank. But there were also fish out in the middle of the channel. So that's what this is where this really paid off. You're talking about fish. You're talking about a bunch of fish. We went through the 96 or 98 shiners in like 3 hours. And that's getting us bite on every shiner. In fact, one shiner, we caught 3 bass on one shiner. And we didn't catch 96 bass. No, we didn't. Because we were missing a lot of them. A lot of them would come off the hook. They'd grab a lot of the bait, and they jumped off and everything else. So out of that first 96 shiners that we had, we hooked up on almost half. We caught almost half. We probably caught about 40 bass at that point. We caught 40 bass. Okay. Now on this rig, some of those were 5 and 6 pounds. We had 2 7-pounders, by the way, and a 6-pounder, several 5-pounders. We had a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bunch of fish. Okay. On this particular rig, I use this as a free line. Here's a free line. I throw it out in the current. You notice that little weight? I got a 3/16 ounce lead weight on there. I just do it like a worm, like a worm weight, like fishing a Texas rig. And they don't seem to mind that weight, just kind of sliding there. And these I hook in the mouth because they're often in the current. I like to have them kind of swim off the bottom, and I don't know, I just throw them out there. And every few minutes, because there's grass on the bottom, with the free line, what you do, of course, you watch your line. You throw it out there, 20, 30 feet. And then every once in a while, you kind of move it a little bit and kind of jig it and make sure it's not caught in the grass. In fact, it's caught on something back there. I don't even know how to find out what's caught on. Anyway, you move it just an inch or two and then put the rod down. I'll put the rod down and I'll open the bail like this. And I'll put it in the rod holder. Now, if I'm using my tracker boat, I have rod holders, and that's really a big deal. But on this bass boat, I don't have rod holders. So I just have to watch it. And I tell everybody, keep the bail open. Watch that line, and sure enough, if everybody's really alert and watching, we can do it. Now, it's funny. I make people designated anglers, and we had a husband and wife combination, and so I knew what was going to happen. About 90% of the time, I'll say to the husband, I'll say, well, sir, I'm going to have a couple more rods. I'm going to have more than one rod. Somebody's going to have to be a designated angler. So if we get another bite, everybody can hold a rod. But I'll have another couple rods just laying around that nobody's even holding. I'll be watching them. And when they get a bite, somebody has to be a designated angler. So they always say, the men always say, oh, I'll make my wife the designated angler. She be a little chivalrous and help the wife out. Well, the wife hadn't caught a lot of bass. Boy, now I give her 2 extra rods. So she's actually fishing like 3 rods, and he's like fishing 1 rod. And he's doing a good job. Now he's catching almost all his fish. So he's doing really well. He's not missing any. She's missing a few, but she's catching more fish because she's got more rods. And it's pandemonium. At one time, we had 3 fish on at the same time, and a 4th rod was being pulled under as well. So we went through those shiners like crazy. So there's a guy on the lake named Manny, and he's our bait guy. He lives in Okeechobee, and he catches bait for us. And Manny, I called him on the phone. I said, Manny, you got any extra shiners? I said, we're just about out. And by this time, it's close to noon. And he said, yeah, he got plenty of shiners. I told him where he was, and he came over. He's just a super guy. And he delivered them right to the lake. And, of course, I paid for them. Then, shiners are $25 a dozen. So, here it is. I'm now up to about 12 dozen shiners. 12 dozen shiners. That's a lot of money. $300 or $400. But anyway, we started using those shiners and bang, 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 bang. We went through those shiners. So we went through like almost 150 shiners. And when I got back to the launch ramp, I think I had 3 or 4 shiners in the tank. We had, and I figured all the ones that we had, and they hit dead shiners. That's the other thing. They hit dead shiners. And so figuring the ones that they hit dead shiners and the ones that they hit twice, we had probably 150 bites, and we didn't catch 150 bass. No, we didn't. We figured we caught around 70 bass. Now that's just a fair account because you lose a lot of them. You just don't hook them up. So many times if he's under 3 pounds, so he'll sometimes not have the hook. And if they're usually 5 and 6 and 8 pounds, like some of those were, well, 5 and 6 and 7 pounds, they get the thing really good. So we caught most of the big fish. I don't know that we lost the trophy, but we caught. They caught each their biggest fish that ever caught. But that was only half the story. You know, they caught their personal best, and that's what I try for. But they also caught that was their best bass fishing day they've ever had. They were from Michigan, and they catch a lot of. Well, actually, they were from Wisconsin. I'm sorry, they were from Wisconsin, and they've caught lots of bass, but not as many nice ones as we caught the other day. So many of them were so many of them were 4 to 7 pounds. It's just a ton of them. So that was really an exquisite day. So anyway, I got back home and I went to the doctor and I got some issues with my prostate. I'm getting that all fixed. I'm going in for some procedures for that. I'm working on some rods, and I showed you some of the equipment problems we have. Of course, I'm working on my boat here. My tractor has a bad axle, and so we're in the process of putting new axles in this boat. But also, I'm also guiding a lot at Lake Okeechobee. Now, here, let me just explain that Okeechobee thing a little bit. My Okeechobee guiding is it's almost as good as Headwaters. Headwaters you catch more fish, and Headwaters there's possibly some big fish as well. But Okeechobee, that's my favorite lake. And I still the water's real high right now. It's a little bit difficult to fish. I'm catching a lot of fish. I'm not catching too many big ones, but there's an occasional 8, 9, or 10 pounder there. But the thing about my guiding at Okeechobee is that I've kind of done the how-to thing. I'm going to show people when I take them out as they go on a guide trip. I'm going to show them how to flip. I'm going to show you how to work topwater. I'm going to show them the finer points of worm fishing the way I do it. I'm going to even show them some of the active target live scoping that I do in the canal for both bass and even crappie for that. So there's a lot of instructional stuff I do, and of course I tell a lot of cool stories like fishing with the president and stuff like that. Anyway, it's really kind of cool. Okay, the other thing I did was Laura, my daughter, she said, "Dad, give me about 10 turkey calls." And so I brought some turkey calls over, and sure enough, I got my regular turkey call, all my mills, and these are all big machines that I help make mill out my turkey calls with, and I got this special wood. I found this new wood, and what this wood is it's called black limba. And I see how look at the grain on that thing. Look at the grain. It's a kind of a new wood. It's got all kind of grain to it. It's from West Africa, black limba. Anyway, I'm making up 25 calls for her that I can take over there, and she's selling them. Hey, now that's a turkey call, son. That really sounds good. Now this lid is a acacia. That's from my backyard, and it's a hardwood from Australia, and it comes. We get it. I've chopped a bunch of it down. I've got tons of it. I've got big piles of wood all over the place, and it's all cured. And listen to that sound. Isn't that cool? It's a turkey call. Anyway, that's kind of what I'm doing. Let me tell you one other thing I'm up to. My good friend Steve Papp, he's from Fort Lauderdale. I fish with him down A1 a lot. He's got a program. I'm going to go with him Monday where we shoot iguana lizards with air rifles on these canals around Fort Lauderdale, and we catch these peacock bass, snook, tarpon, and all kind of cichlids with rods and reels underneath the bridges, and there's expressways going back and forth, and there's canals all over the place. And every once in a while, we'll see these big iguana lizards about 20 or 30 pounds, and they're great to eat. And they're an invasive species. They want them killed out. So the Fish and Game says kill as many iguana lizards as possible. He has these special air guns, and and he usually gets, if there's 3 people in the boat, he usually gets like a dozen of these big old iguanas a day. We'll get a couple, and then we'll catch a bunch of peacock bass. So that's kind of my plan for Monday, and I'll tell you how that all goes. It's going to be a lot of fun. But in the meantime, hey, listen, hey, hit that likes button. I told you a few things about what's happening on our Headwaters and what happened on Lake Okeechobee. If you want more information, you can get a hold of the marina at Lake Okeechobee and do something with that. In the meantime, hey, hit that likes button. We need every likes we can. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.